Hey, everybody, welcome back to another raucous rendition of Roll On, wherein, to wit, the duly anointed, pod-knighted Sir Adam Skolnick and I dissect matters top of mind, matters seminal and of great consequence, and matters perhaps specious, whimsical, and or vapid, depending upon your vantage point. We also do a wee bit of show and tell, and of course, answer your questions from our voicemail.
Did a Scottish man write this copy for you? I didn't realize
I was feeling, free with the pen when I came up with this.
I like it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was a pod knight, but I appreciate it.
You could do the whole podcast in that accent. How about that?
I think you'd lose lots of listeners.
It would not be good, right?
I did. You know what? I speak to dogs that way now. So as I'm running by, if there's a dog, I'm like, "Hello, mate. How are you?" And the dog owners love it.
This would fall under the specious aspect of things to be discussed today.
Yes.
TMI, my friend. Listener questions. If you want your question answered, leave us a voicemail at 424-235-4626. So lean back, lean in, smash that subscribe button, as the YouTube kids say. That is what they say, right?
Is it? The only YouTube kids I watch are 30 years old, Chad and JT.
Yeah. Well, they're like 14 though.
Yes, I love them.
All right. Well, let's get into it. I want to kick things off with just a quick announcement. Voicing Change is back in stock. So for those of you who are new here, Voicing Change is my latest book. It's a coffee table rendition of the podcast, featuring wizened excerpts and poignant essays and glorious photography from some 50 of my favorite guests over the last 8.5 years of doing this thing. We are ready to ship globally direct to your coffee table or your commode, depending upon how you enjoy literature.
I enjoy literature on my commode.
Plenty do. I'm not afraid to say.
Yes.
We have signed copies available, so to learn more and snag your tome, visit richroll.com/VC, which is the only place you can get this book. We're not making it available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. This is a self-published thing. So again, richroll.com/VC. Adam, what's up?
I like that you made that choice.
Well, I get a lot of messages like, how come I can't find it on Amazon? So this is why. We have circumvented.
I can't believe Jeff Bezos is texting you like that.
Yeah, it's because of a personal vendetta that I have with Jeff Bezos. No.
Oh yeah, it's Bezos. I'm good, man. Life is
good.
Life is it hasn't changed. Still, mostly at home.
It has changed, though.
What?
It has changed.
Well, everything
because
has
nothing
changed,
is
and yet
static.
nothing has changed.
The universe is expanding, Adam.
It's expanding in front of my eyes.
As is your consciousness.
I'm not so sure about that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to be.
Is your consciousness contracting?
It just depends on the night's sleep.
Yeah.
Like today, I feel like my
that.
consciousness has expanded. Yes.
I didn't sleep so well last night.
So it's a narrowed.
Yeah. The wind, it's been so crazy windy here.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the wind keeps me awake at night.
It does to me too.
And the full moon, I never sleep well. So we're just past a full moon. I never, like the day before a full moon, the full moon evening, and then the following night. Every month I have, it's a weird like lunar gravitational pull. I don't know what it is, but I have restless nights every time. If anybody out there knows anything about why that might be, I actually am getting Matthew Walker on the podcast. We have him scheduled sometime in the next couple weeks. He's the guy who wrote Why We Sleep. He's like the leading sleep expert. That's going to be my first question for him.
Well, Chinese medicine has considers wind in like well-being. It considers elements like that, and I think Ayurvedic medicine does as well, if I'm not mistaken. So experts chime in.
Right. I think your consciousness is expanded based upon that response.
I think just based on my, but how does my consciousness look? Because that's what's really important.
I think you're looking fabulous today.
Good.
I mean, other than the wind, the weather's been great. I'm enjoying the new studio. I'm excited about all the pods that we've been producing.
Dude, you got your hero going, right?
We had Raghunath, which was great. It was so fun talking to him. Stephen Pressfield, personal hero. Jedediah Jenkins, all
amazing,
stellar.
What a great lineup so far, just this year.
Cool. Yeah, and we've got exciting new people on the horizon. Also been working on some compelling new top secret projects that I'm not ready to discuss quite yet, but that has me getting out of bed pretty pumped up for the day
exciting.
lately.
Yes.
Feeling fit, feeling grateful. So
how's your
something
body
must
feeling?
be wrong.
What's going on with the back?
Back is feeling okay. I've been getting some good work on it from my man Lawrence Van Lingen, who's really been helping me out with my posture and my pelvic placement, all these like things that he's been doing, subtle changes in how I move and run. That seems to be helping. So yeah, man, I feel good.
Nice.
Speaking of feeling good, we're 1 week out from the Goggins 4x4x48 challenge. So we got to check in on
less than a week
on where you're at with that physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, consciously.
Okay. Where should we start?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I'm spiritually dead, so let's not go there. No, I'm just kidding, folks. I feel good.
Maybe that'll be good for getting you through the challenge.
Okay, so first of all, Nicholas Ramirez has come in hot with some great coaching in the last couple of weeks.
He snapped to it after the last podcast.
Here's the thing about podcasting, as you may be well aware. You don't always say what you want. It doesn't come out right all the time, and then it's like out there and people listen to it.
I have a little experience with this.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Do you experience podcast regret the next day?
Not often, but it certainly has happened. And now we're in such a hair trigger world that I feel more cautious than I ever felt before.
Yeah.
Not that I don't know what I would say that would be that controversial.
Well, all I said in relationship to Nicholas was that he wasn't really doing a lot of personalized coaching, and mostly I was just getting stuff through the app. But that was okay because I actually liked that, and so that's what I didn't say, because I actually personal coaching feels kind of intense for me, and I actually like kind of just doing my own thing. Give me a workout to do, and then I can make it work and do it. And so I've actually really enjoyed it, and it has helped my fitness overall. But then once he heard that, he kind of was like,
Thursday morning, the phone's ringing. What do you mean?
He wanted to talk, and no, not so much that. He was like, he felt bad, which I didn't want him to feel bad. I mean, he's got a million things, and it's great just to have the Team N Bowl workouts. But he's been tailored some stuff. So it's kind of been a combination of stuff you've suggested, he suggested, and David suggested to me. So I guess it was a week ago, Saturday or Sunday, I did my first simulation, which was 3 times every 4 hours. He suggested, instead of doing 2 and 2 and 2 or whatever, to do 3, 4, 5. So I did that. And that included the 5 mile at night, which was my first night run, because I never really run at night. I don't know the last time I had run at night, where I started out at night. And so that was great. That was a good little beginning. And then just Friday, I did 4, 4, 3, 3. He wanted me to do 4, 4, 4, 4, but then David thought it'd be better, because he knows my foot situation, just to do 3 threes, 4 threes. But I decided to do a little bit of kind of a mix. I did 4, 4, 3, 3, starting at noon. No, starting at 8 in the morning, or 8 or 9, and then every roughly 3 to 4 hours. Right. And so I did the last one at night.
That's great, man.
And I felt strong.
How'd that feel?
I felt really strong. I felt like my fastest miles were the last run, and I wasn't going fast because I'm doing zone 2, but I felt strong. I could have done another run. So I feel like the first day, I feel very prepared for the first day. Other than I'll have to grab sleep, but other than that, I feel like 6 4s is not going to be extremely difficult for me, barring any sort of weird mishap where I step off a curb and hurt myself.
So this kicks off Friday
at 8 p.m.
Friday at 8 p.m. So this podcast goes up Thursday, so it'll literally go up. People will be consuming this on the eve of the launch.
And I will do some Instagram stories. So David's going to do every run. He'll be doing something. I'll be watching his, and then I'll do something either before or after a run. Right. Probably after is probably when I'll check in, mostly because I want to be connected to him. There are 500, David just posted about this, there are 500 people who've already signed up through his website from 45 countries. I heard from someone from Iceland through Instagram messaging just now, who there's 2 people in Iceland that are going to do it, but 45 countries literally.
How many people
involved.
Total?
Just the 500 that we know of, because they've messaged through the app, through the website. But really, you're not supposed to post about that you're going to do it. You're supposed to post about that you've done it. So he wanted people to do it that way, but people have been doing it ahead of time, which he's embraced. So it's a whole worldwide movement, really, of people doing this. I think it's really cool.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
It's so wild how David has been able to just marshal, this massive following of people to get on board with something challenging and hard like this. It's amazing.
And and he was talking about it, the unifying aspect, how if people just want to focus on getting better and doing something hard for themselves, and that it becomes a unifying thing that people from all over the world, different vantage points, viewpoints, backgrounds, whatever political leanings, can come together. It just shows that we are capable of coming together,
right?
Which is cool.
Yeah.
And this is in the name of really a very challenging thing. So the second day, I have no doubt, will be extremely difficult. I'm not like going in overconfident at all, but I've got some electrolytes now.
I know. I was going to ask you if you've been practicing your nutrition and hydration.
I have. Your sponsor sent me about 150 packages of electrolytes.
Element?
Element. So they're either terrified that I'm going to fall on my face at some point or just want me to try it. So I use that during the So the first simulation, I didn't hydrate very well. I didn't have it planned out very well. The second one, I had the element stuff, which really helped. I hydrated and ate much more mindfully, and it was working. And I have a dozen Japanese sweet potatoes, those small ones,
right,
that I'm going to cook ahead of time. I'm going to have a lot of avocados in the house.
Soak some dates too.
Yeah, dates. I didn't get dates. I got to get dates.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
No stomach problems.
It's funny. What's good about this, the Friday simulation, it just so happened I woke up with like a little bit of a weird digestive thing and one of those headaches that's kind of like those gnawing, kind of almost food poisoning headaches. And I woke up with it and I went running. And the first 2 miles of the first run, I felt it. And then I finally ran through it. And then the second run, same thing, because I hadn't hydrated enough. And after the second run, I really made sure I did 2 electrolyte, 16 ounces. And then that kind of washed it out. And I felt great by the end. So
yeah, I mean, that's why one of many reasons why doing the simulations are so important, because you're putting yourself in the position that simulates what you're going to feel like in that moment, and you're able to test things like hydration, et cetera. The other thing that I thought that you said that was great is that you began a run and you didn't feel good and you kept going, and that shifted. And I think that's a really important lesson for anybody who's listening who, is dipping their toe into the endurance world. There's going to be days and moments and times, whether it's in training or in a race, where you're not going to feel good, or you're going to start running and you're going to feel terrible and think, well, I don't have it, I need to quit. But if you just stay in it, you realize and you learn that things change and shift. Just because you feel lousy in one particular instance doesn't mean that that's going to persist. Like, you can kind of work through that, and you have these breakthroughs when you do these simulation weekends and you realize, oh yeah, I got through that. I ended up finishing that run feeling better than when I started. And that's very empowering in terms of providing you with the confidence and the experience to, weather something like this.
Well, thank you. That's what I felt. I felt like, okay, the headache's not great, but it's not the worst headache you've ever had. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to look at it. And we slept horribly the night before. The baby was
right,
really restless, and so I felt like good. I felt confident. I'm like, this is a good thing. Let's see if I can do it now.
Right.
So that's how the simulation started. And it ended a lot better. So
the rough part's going to be those like ones in the middle of the night or in the early morning.
That's going to be tough for me. It's going to be tough.
I just got to get through those.
The first night, I'm going to stay up to the midnight run. I'm not going to try to get any sleep until after midnight, and then do the midnight run. Then get a little bit of sleep. Get up for the 4. Get a little more sleep, and then try to stay awake all day.
Cool.
That's the plan.
Well, I've got a ride planned for Saturday. So maybe on Saturday, I'll ride down to your neck of the woods and try to track you down.
Hell yeah.
And I'll do a little,
that'd be amazing.
I'll grab your phone and do the Instagram thing.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of riding, that's really been something that I've been focusing on lately. I've just formed this new ambassador relationship with Specialized Bicycles.
Yes.
Which has been really great. And they've got me kitted out on this new Turbo Creo SL.
Okay.
And I put gravel tires on that, and I've been getting out on and riding on gravel for the first time. I've never been a mountain biker. I've always been a roadie.
Right.
But there's so much gravel and fire roads around where we live.
So gravel bikes are good for fire roads and like those gravel roads?
They're not meant for like super technical, sort of mountain biking where you're like jumping over rocks and things like that. The gravel bikes don't have like the shock absorption and that kind of like geometry, but they're great for just riding on dirt and loose gravel and the fire roads, basically, like the wide fire roads around.
Yeah.
And that's been super fun and kind of a learning curve for me, but it's opened up like a whole new world. So I rode from my house, like I took Dirt Mulholland all the way to and down Mandeville and like into Brentwood and around Santa
From your
Monica.
house?
Yeah, like
that's
it was
amazing.
Super fun. And the thing
How long is that?
It was like a 50-mile ride. I did like a big loop.
That's fantastic.
But here's the thing. So the Turbo Creo SL is an e-bike, right? It's got a motor in it.
Is that the one you took?
Right?
Is that the one you took?
So so I took that, and what's been cool and interesting and new is the experience of riding an e-bike, which is something I have no experience with and never thought in a million years that I would ever have an e-bike. Like I'm a fitness junkie. Like I don't want a motor in my bike. I want to test myself, right?
Yes.
You got to be some kind of lame-o to like put a motor in your bike.
Don't say lame-o, you'll get
I would
canceled.
have never, I don't know what the appropriate vernacular is anymore.
Just kidding.
But I had two experiences. One, I went up to Santa Barbara a couple months ago to hang out with Dan Buettner.
Yes.
And he's got a bunch of e-bikes.
Yes.
And he's like, you got to ride these. They're super fun. I was like, an e-bike, really? And we took him out and we had a blast. Went all over Santa Barbara, up all these climbs, super fun. And then I had Brian Fogel on the podcast, who people know as the filmmaker behind Icarus.
Yep.
So he's a sick cyclist, like incredibly fit. He also made The Dissident, the Khashoggi doc that's out right now. And he was the one who got me excited about this Turbo Creo. He's like, you got to get this bike. It's the greatest thing. I'm like, I don't need an e-bike. He's like, no. It's so fun. You end up riding longer. You ride more because it's more fun. And it allows you to go places you wouldn't ordinarily go. Like going up these fire roads that are crazy steep that even if you just had a regular gravel bike, you might not ride up. And he said that he's like increased his riding, like, I don't know, 30% from what he used to do because of this bike. And he's able to go out longer.
So do you use it
so basically,
like selectively?
Basically, I keep the motor on like the low, it has like different rungs of power. So I keep it I either turn it off or I keep it on the lowest rung, and it just gives you a little bit of kick. So you're still getting a workout. It's not like you're not riding. But then when you hit some like 20% grade on a fire road, you can just cruise up it without wrecking yourself. And so I've been out riding quite a bit, and I'm able to get a good workout, but not destroy myself. So I'm exhausted all day.
Right.
And then wake up the next day and do it again. It's been like really fun. And again, it's something I never would have thought that this would be something that I would be into.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying it. The only thing that I had to do is I had to decouple my bike computer from Strava because I don't want any of these rides. It's like I've got a motor assist. Like I can't have this stuff up on like, Strava where they have segments and all of that.
People,
like it's not legit. It's like totally cheating. So I'm not riding and I'm like feeling guilty. Like when I'm riding by somebody or riding next to somebody, I'm like, that guy's got a motor. Like how lame is that?
Right.
But I'm actually having so much fun with the whole thing. And I want to thank Specialized. Like I'm excited about this relationship and appreciate the gear.
It's a heavy bike though. You couldn't go up a hill.
I don't know what the
it.
weight specifically is of it, but yeah, it's like 26 pounds. I mean, it's heavy to lift. Yeah, it's definitely like a very heavy bike.
What's the charge on it?
I think you can charge it up in like 6 hours or something like that. And also in one of the water bottle cages, you can put a secondary battery. So you actually have two batteries, like a backup battery.
Does the crank generate any sort of charge?
No, I don't think so. No, but the range is pretty good. I mean, it obviously depends on the power mode that you're on and how much pedaling you're doing versus how much the motor is doing the work. But it's got something like an 80-mile range. Okay. So, I've gone out, like I did a 6-hour ride the other day, maybe 2 weeks ago, and still had plenty of power to go when I was done.
Cool.
So
sounds fun.
Super fun. So I've been doing that, and also amping up the strength training, which has been fun too.
Oh, good.
There's a gym near my house, one of those chain gyms, and they moved all their equipment into a parking garage, and they have they take your temperature when you go in, but it's essentially all outdoors and with masks, and all the equipment is like spaced out over like a very large lot. And I've been hitting that like a couple times a week. So that's been my thing. A little bit less running. I haven't been swimming very much. I mean, the pools are tricky to get into right now.
And the ocean is cold. Trust me.
The ocean is cold. Yeah.
I was just out there.
I was with my friend Drew the other day, and he's been out swimming, and he just, with a wetsuit, a sleeveless wetsuit. It's like, he said it's something like 55 or 54.
It was
right
50.
now.
It was 55 on Saturday, but then it got really windy again. It was one of our friends' watches had 51 earlier in the week. I wasn't out that day, but it's been cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait until it's about maybe 59.
Kona.
He's like, I don't need that right now.
You went to Kona.
My blood is thin these days, my friend. Speaking of cold weather and fitness challenges, I do want to shout out my boy, James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. For those that don't know, James has been on the podcast a couple times in the past, most notably for performing one of the greatest feats in endurance history, in my opinion, which is this crazy accomplishment where he did 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days, which to this day, I just still have a hard time wrapping my head around.
How do you
literally
even think
traveling from state to state and making sure that he completed an Ironman in each of the 50 states, never missed a day, got the whole thing done.
Did he like cross state boundaries on the run leg so that he could start again?
No, I think each Ironman was completed within the boundaries of a particular state. They had an RV and a couple of vehicles. There were, I think he started in Hawaii, then he went to Alaska. So obviously planes were involved. And then I think he went to Washington and then Oregon and worked his way down the West Coast and then across the states, doing it by RV. And then I went to, he's from Utah. His 50th was in his home state, obviously near his hometown. I traveled and ran the final marathon with him. I made a little video about it that's up on YouTube that I can link up to the show notes.
Awesome.
He came on the podcast before attacking this challenge, and then I did a second podcast with him at his house after he completed it. And so the reason I'm shouting him out right now is he's doubling down. And today, we're recording this on Monday. Today is the first day of his 100 challenge, where he's going to attempt to do 100 consecutive Ironmans in 100 days. He's not traveling state to state. He's doing it all, around his home.
Right.
But that's
so that means a lot more hills.
He's got a pool. I mean, it's snowing. It was like 27 degrees in Utah yesterday, but there's an outdoor pool that's heated to 82 degrees.
Okay.
He's sharing everything on Instagram stories. He's got a bunch of kids and a huge crew and lots of support, and they're all kind of chiming in on his Instagram, so you can follow along on his Instagram stories. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
He's at Iron Cowboy James, I think is his account on Instagram. So if you're not already following this guy, you should be. And this is going to be a very interesting drama that's going to unfold over 100 days. I mean, it's basically a third of a year. It's going to take him to do this crazy thing.
I feel shamed right now.
So I know, but this guy's bred for this thing. This is a guy who, I might butcher the story, but as a demonstration of his sort of perseverance and ability to suffer. When he was a kid, there was some contest in his town. I think he's from Canada originally. There was like the carnival came to town, and there was some contest who could ride the Ferris wheel the longest without getting off. And I can't remember how long he stayed on it, but he just refused to get off it. Like he just won. So this is a guy who does not quit. And
we got to get him to the Huberman lab and find out like how
he should.
What's going on in there.
He should. So anyway, I've had some texts back and forth with him. He's in good spirits, and I'm excited to watch this whole thing unfold. And I was the first person prior to him beginning the 50-50-50 to say, I don't think this is possible. Like I told it to us, I was like, I don't, just not because I didn't believe that he wasn't mentally capable or physically capable, but there's so many variables with the travel in between states and logistics and just innumerable things that could go wrong
and
that he couldn't control.
And having done,
I mean, I tried
similar.
to do 5, and we ran into all kinds of stuff that made it impossible to get it done in 5. And he did 50 and met tons of obstacles, but was able to overcome all of them and complete it. And I just think that that's, an unbelievable feat. And here he is now trying to do 100. So
crazy.
So kudos, cowboy hat off to the Iron Cowboy, and we'll be paying attention and following along.
And speaking of like persevering, even when you don't think you can, like you don't feel good. I remember from your book, I believe it was the 4th Ironman, where you thought you were toast after the swim. And you spent all that time in the shower. Or was it after the bike?
That was after the bike
after
on the
fourth one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I really met my maker.
And you just decided, okay, I'll just walk for a little bit, but you for sure were done. And yet you weren't. And then your 5th one, you actually hammered it.
Yeah. And that goes to the point that I was making earlier.
Yeah.
Like you just have to keep moving, and these things shift and change. And that 4th one, I mean, a lot of that had to do with sleep deprivation.
Yeah, right.
And also heat. And this is an interesting thing about James. It's like, why is he doing this March 1st? Like, it's 27 degrees. Why doesn't he start this thing in like May, or later in the year where he doesn't have to deal with snow and sub-freezing temperatures? But he answered this question the other day on Instagram. He's like, I do better in the cold, and I don't do well in heat. So
yeah, running in the cold, running in cool air is much easier for me.
Yeah, but would you rather? There's cool and then there's cold.
Yes,
like 27 degrees doing an Ironman is not. That's in my book. Get me to Hawaii.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Anyway, we love you, James. Good luck with this.
Good luck,
we'll
James.
be checking in. So let's take a quick break and we'll be back. We got a couple big stories, important stuff to talk about, and we'll see you in a few. Sorry to interrupt the flow. We'll be right back with more awesome. But first, I do want to snag a quick moment to talk about something I care a lot about, which is the importance of nutrition. And the thing is, most people I know actually aspire to eat better, to incorporate more whole plants, fruits, vegetables, seeds, beans, and legumes into their daily regimen. Sadly, however, without the proper tools and support, very few end up sticking with it. And so, because adopting a plant-based diet transformed my life so profoundly, and because I want everyone to experience some version of what I've experienced, we decided to tackle and solve this very common problem. And the solution we've devised, I'm proud to say, is the Plant Power Meal Planner, our affordable, all-in-one digital platform that sets you up for nutrition excellence by providing access to thousands of customizable, super delicious, easy-to-prepare plant-based recipes. Everything integrates with automatic grocery delivery. You get access to our team of amazing nutrition coaches 7 days a week, and many, many other amazing features. To learn more and sign up, visit meals.richroll.com. And right now, for a limited time, we're offering $10 off an annual membership when you use the promo code RRHealth at checkout. This is life-changing stuff, literally for just $1.70 a week, the price of a cup of coffee. Again, that's meals.richroll.com, promo code RRHealth for $10 off an annual membership. All right, back to the pod. All right, and we're back. We got 2 stories for the big story. The first one, Adam, why don't you kick it off?
All right. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this hate crime spree that's happening to the Asian American community or Asian community across the United States. And what started, I believe it started first in Oakland, where there was a bunch of older elders just walking the streets and getting pushed over from behind or beat up, or just slurs hurled at them. But a lot of it was violent. Like people were getting pushed over, people were getting to the hospital with getting stitches, breaking bones. This was in Oakland. They caught somebody there. But then in New York City, a lot of stuff was happening as well, Queens and in Manhattan. It just became this replication. And then it happened in San Diego. And then, I was saying it's nice around LA, at least, we've been spared it. And then I believe it was yesterday, I'm looking at the LA Times story from the 26th, and the Buddhist temple in Little Tokyo, which anybody in the LA area knows immediately where that is, was vandalized, and they tried to burn it down. 2 wooden lantern stands were burned. Metallic lanterns were vandalized. It's at the Higashi Honganji Buddhist Temple, and I've seen it many, many times. It's a beautiful landmark building. And listen, I just find it appalling, first of all, that old people can't walk the streets without fear for their lives. And it's reprehensible, but it's not something that hasn't happened before. We saw it after 9/11 with Indian American community and people of Arab descent. We after Trump was elected, hate crime sprees spiked in those communities as well. And now it's landing on the Asian American community. So much that Jeremy Lin, the basketball player, was called the coronavirus on court during a G League game.
So crazy. So does this track to the coronavirus,
yes.
or what is the genesis of this?
It started, actually, if you look back in, if you could connect this more recent kind of rash of cases to right after lockdown. It started to happen right after lockdown as well. So there was I think a viral video of a woman getting called racial slurs on the subway in New York, right when it was really hitting New York City. So it started then, and now it's just kind of this new rash of cases has happened. There are leaders in the community. Lisa Ling, CNN, she has she's doing a lot of kind of highlighting these cases on her Instagram. Andrew Yang spoke about it. I mean, it's a major, major epidemic. It's appalling, and just wanted to urge people.
Yeah, I mean, there's not what is there to say about it?
Yeah.
Don't be an asshole. What is wrong with people?
I don't know.
I don't understand it, and I would suspect that if you drew the Venn diagram between the people who deny the existence of coronavirus and the perpetrators of this type of crime, there's going to be some overlap. So does the coronavirus not exist, or is it, is it the fault of Asian Americans who are citizens of this country? I mean, it's appalling. It's disgusting. It's disappointing and disheartening that in 2021 we're having to contend with this kind of racial strife. It's unbelievable.
It's hard to fathom. It's like, look, every day you wake up, you have a choice to make in your life. And the choice, you're taught from the time you're a little kid. I mean, sure, some children don't get taught not to push people over when they're little. But even if you had the worst upbringing ever, if you get to the point where you're 15, 16, 17, and you think it's a good idea to push over an old person kind of trying to make it down the street, I just don't know what to do with you. And it's so there's the hate crime aspect, and there's this elder abuse aspect, and it's all rolled up into one. And that's why it's so horrifying, I think. That's why it's even more horrifying from behind, too. And so the cowardliness that's involved here, and this, we're better than this, but we're not. So it's the human being should be better than this, but we're not always. And so this is all of our responsibility to fix this problem, and that is calling it out. If you see it, call it out, defend it, defend people who are getting abused. And there was one video in Queens where this guy shouldered through an older woman, pushed her down, and nobody did anything. He just kept walking down the street.
It's I honestly, I don't know what to say, because I can't wrap my head around what would motivate somebody to do that.
Yeah.
It's people that are, angry and disenfranchised and looking for somebody to blame, and they see a helpless person who's an easy target, and that becomes the locus of their rage.
Yeah.
And it's inexcusable. And we're seeing this, in addition to this Asian hate crime spree, we're seeing it. We saw it with the black surfers in Southern California recently as well.
At El Porto.
Yeah.
And the same thing. A black surfer was hassled and splashed and called racial epithets, and nobody in the lineup came to his defense. And so then there was this paddle out, and
right, I saw that,
and that was good. That was well attended. It was hundreds of people, I think, came down to support the black community there. And look, we are a melting pot. We are fed from all sorts of different cultures. Surfing's a perfect example. Surfing is not a sport that originated in the white community.
Right.
It only exists because, there was a friendship tour from Hawaii that came and demonstrated it up and down the coast of California. And then it became endemic here. Mm-hmm. But it's, so look, we rely on each other. We need to keep our radar up. And so obviously your listeners aren't this problem, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be ready to respond.
Yeah. Well said. I want to move on to other issues that we got to talk about. The next thing is something that caught my eye and I thought was worth spending a few minutes on. I was listening to Marc Maron's podcast, and last week he had 2 actors from this new independent film called Body Brokers. He had Melissa Leo and Michael K. Williams. I listened to both of those and then was so intrigued that I went and watched this movie, Body Brokers, and it really struck a nerve with me. Less for the cinematic aspect of the film itself and more for the issue that it's addressing. Essentially, it's a movie about a recovering junkie who's recruited to a rehab only to discover that said rehab really isn't about helping people, but it's actually a cover for a multi-billion-dollar fraud operation that enlists addicts to recruit other addicts. And this is something that is going on in the treatment industry at large, and is an issue that I think is under-discussed, under-addressed, and in need of being dealt with in a large way. And as somebody who's very interested in addiction, somebody who's been in recovery for many, many years, and a product of treatment and a treatment center, a very good one, I'm well aware and I'm steeped in kind of the recovery community here in Los Angeles, and in particular living, sort of near Malibu. Am also aware that Malibu has become this kind of rehab Riviera where there's just tons of mansions that are now sober living facilities.
And they're usually McMansions.
Rehabs. Yeah, exactly. and I knew that on some level, this is like a money-making real estate play because you can lease these houses that have like 10 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And rather than, rent them to, a family at X dollars, you can rent out each bedroom for, a crazy multiple on that.
Right.
Like, so instead of
like
maybe
fees.
$2,000 a bedroom, it goes for like $20,000 a bedroom. And so these things become money-making machines. And that's why you're seeing a proliferation of them. So I knew that was going on. And I knew that there's a lot of sort of shady sober living houses and treatment centers. But what I didn't fully understand or appreciate is the extent to which this has escalated into a full-blown insurance scam that is generating billions of dollars. So essentially what happened is that when the Affordable Health Care Act was signed in 2008, it required every healthcare provider to cover substance abuse treatment, which is on its face a good thing, right? It's like we're trying to provide access to treatment for people that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. But since that bill was passed, nearly 2,000 sober livings, 100 inpatient treatment centers, and 200 detox facilities opened up in Southern California alone. So like 35,000 beds that need to be filled every month, and almost 500,000 that need to be filled every year, which brings a profit of something like $12 billion annually just to Southern California. I think the market cap all told is something like $42 billion in the United States. Which is crazy. And so basically what happens is, and what the film illustrates is how these sober living facilities and treatment centers are basically
they rely on brokers, right?
They rely on these brokers who go out into the world and find junkies, and then they're able to, even if these people don't have insurance, they have like these umbrella policies that they can get their name under so that they can get the insurance money. And then they get them in the centers. And then every single aspect of that experience is monetized, from the pillows to the sheets to the urine tests. Like everything that goes into that gets billed to the insurance company. And a lot of these not so above the board institutions like crazy overbill, like $600 for a pillow or something like that. And then the insurance company will say, well, we're not going to pay $600, but we'll pay $200 or whatever for like a $20 pillow. And these things just they're like money laundering operations. And then it becomes about making sure that those beds are always filled. So it's not about getting these people well. It's about keeping them sick. And if they relapse, bringing them back in, and then cutting the addicts in on the VIG, so that the people that are in attendance in treatment are actually getting paid to go to rehab.
They get a kickback. And then there's something about like the first urine test has to be negative in order for them to bill properly. So they want you to get high one last time before you get in. And I saw that in a couple of stories. That was in the movie, but also in Florida. That was documented. In California, it's been documented. Florida and California, like South Florida and California, South Florida, are the two.
Right. The sort of most high-profile transgression took place a couple of years ago with this guy called Christopher Batham.
That story is
it's a crazy story for people that are not familiar with it. It ended up being adapted into a series on Amazon called Bad Therapist. But basically, this guy Batham became director of a treatment center in Malibu called Seasons. In 2010, he was pushed out after a bunch of heinous sexual abuse charges, and he would do drugs with the inpatients, and I think he OD'd at one point. He then opens up this other treatment facility called Walking Miracles in Koreatown in 2011. I actually have a friend, Cliff Brodsky, who was an investor in that.
In Walking Miracles?
Yeah, and ultimately Cliff, who I've known for many, many years, ends up being one of the whistleblowers on this whole thing, which is interesting. And in any event, Walking Miracles goes bankrupt. That's why Cliff started to come out and kind of tell the world how this guy was really operating.
Yeah.
But then Batham opens up Community Recovery in 2012 as this luxury rehab chain. I think it grew to something like 20 clinics across LA, all the way out to Joshua Tree. He had something like $30 million in revenue in 2015 at a 30% profit margin. And when Cliff and others started talking about what this guy was actually doing, the FBI got involved, the LAPD got involved, started investigating him for his sexual relations and his drug use. And
well, he assaulted, right? Assaulted patients.
I mean, this guy was a bad actor across the board. And then in 2015, Hillel Aaron, who's also a guy that I've been acquainted with over the years, a journalist here in LA, wrote a cover story for LA Weekly that kind of went into the details of what this guy was actually doing. He was never a therapist. He was like a pool cleaner, all the stuff that he was up to.
But he did have certification in hypnotherapy.
He did, yeah. He was a hypnotherapist, right?
And like I think
he wasn't in recovery himself.
He's never been through recovery.
He didn't know anything about addiction treatment or anything.
And that highlights one of the problems is that a sober living house is different than an inpatient drug treatment facility in that you don't need to have certification or something.
Right. And the kind of, if there's a genius to all of this, what he figured out was that if you combine a detox facility with a sober living facility, you're essentially running a treatment center without calling it a treatment center, because treatment centers have to be registered and licensed and all this sort of stuff. So he was able to operate, sort of quote unquote lawfully, and then run all this money through this operation to the tune of $176 million before the House of Cards just, completely caved in on him.
And then the victims of this insurance fraud are the insurance companies. That's why these things persist, because even though addicts are getting, some are actually coming through these things and somehow getting sober, but a lot of people are suffering. And I think there were I saw two different stats, 7 and then 17 people who ended up ODing and dying after going through his programs.
Yeah.
And so yes, addicts will suffer through this, but no one believes the suffering of an addict really when they're especially at the height of their addiction. It's like they're like not a sympathetic, like you don't believe
right.
them.
Yeah, because their trust has been so eroded.
Right.
So a couple things. Yes, the financial victims in all of this are the insurance companies, but the addicts themselves are treated like chattel.
Yeah.
And there's no regard for their well-being or their recovery. Yes, some of them do end up recovering, but the vast majority of them just get cycled through this system and are used like cash registers to do like a churn and burn, right?
And 6 months sober people are hired to
yeah,
them. Like,
and that was one of the things the movie did a good job at, which was Melissa Leo plays like the therapist and, you know, she seems well-intentioned in that regard, but when the protagonist of the movie, who's played by Jack Kilmer, who does a really fine job with this.
He did a great job.
He's acquainted with my boys, Trapper and Tyler.
Shout out Jack.
Jack, when he's basically saying, I'm going to leave, like he's going to leave against medical advice, Melissa Leo's character just says, well, you know, I don't think that's a good idea, but okay. And there's no plan for any kind of long-term treatment protocol to get him sober. Like he doesn't end up getting a sponsor or going to meetings. Like there's nothing in place to make sure that he stays sober because that's not really part of what this is all about. Right. So ultimately, you know, I won't spoil the movie. You can watch it. It doesn't end well. But
you just spoiled it.
but well, I can say it's a dark movie in that regard.
It ends in the darkness.
And I forget the actress's name who plays his girlfriend, but she was unbelievable at embodying like, you know, what a young addict is like in that place as somebody who's known many of those types of people.
Yeah, she was good.
The other crazy thing is that a lot of these treatment centers end up hiring the addicts and alcoholics that, you know, quote unquote, graduate from these facilities. So you're literally letting addicts run the insane asylum. And if addicts are anything, they're incredibly crafty and diligent and persistent at getting what they want. And so if you have any of them that are at all criminally inclined, like this is going to go off the rails, which is exactly what happens in the movie.
Well, that's what's so interesting about, not interesting, but what makes this whole story so crazy is that basically the mentality of the scheme that perpetuates this fraud and is the same mentality. It's a drug dealer mentality. And anybody who's ever required the services of a drug dealer knows that drug dealers cannot be trusted. And yet some of these people who are building it literally have a dealer mentality when it comes to getting people in treatment, getting them out, not giving a shit what happens, just selling and making the money. And then these addicts are kind of acolytes of the drug dealer. I mean, don't you think there's a parallel there?
Yeah, they become indoctrinated into this system. And essentially many of them are, you know, relatively unemployable, or they're felons, or they've never had a real job, and they get a taste of like, hey, we'll just do this, and it's like low-hanging fruit, and suddenly they're in this system, which is, you know, another aspect of the film's narrative that I think is really potent. And I think on top of that, it's well, first of all, to kind of wrap the story about Batham. I mean, he ultimately, you know, gets indicted on 50 counts of fraud, grand theft, money laundering, sexual assault, rape. He's sentenced to, I think he was 20 years.
No, it was 52 years, 20 years just for the fraud.
Oh, okay.
And then 30 years for the serial sexual assault.
Right.
Because he was convicted of that, 7 women. So 52 years total.
So he's in prison now.
Yeah.
But this is sort of the tip of the iceberg. Like this is still going on. And that's what's disheartening. And to your point earlier, there are addicts that are coming out of these experiences in these recovery houses and telling people like, look, this is what's going on, but nobody's believing them, right? They're like, yeah, whatever. Like you're not a trustworthy source.
No one
and
believed
I think
those women.
That allows this kind of thing to continue to perpetuate. So I'm really glad that this movie exists because it's shining a spotlight on this. And you know, like I said at the outset of this, like I care deeply about recovery, and it's so disheartening that it's been hijacked and abused to such an extent. You know, I had a life-changing treatment experience. There are good treatment centers out there. There are good people, well-intentioned people who are providing really good care to
but
people
that was
out
before
there. But now
you paid for that, right?
Yeah, I did. I did. But I'm saying that still exists now.
Yeah.
But I think anybody who's kind of looking at this needs to be more cautious than you used to have to be about what you're getting involved in.
So maybe you can explain, because one of the closing kind of thoughts in this movie is it's not about like basically going to the bells and whistles kind of real world house version of a rehab center. And it's more about 12-step is free, and 12-step has this incredible track record. So maybe you can explain the difference between those two and why 12-step for you, do you think is still kind of the undisputed champ in terms of its effectiveness and what it does?
Well, 12-step is very effective. Like, it works if you work it. Not everybody works it, and not everybody gets sober. And when you've been in recovery for any extended period of time, you end up going to a lot of funerals, and you see a lot of people go out and not come back. So it's heartbreaking as much as it is life affirming. You know, it's real life, and sobriety is hard, and it's slow, and it's not linear. And, 12-step is not perfect in that regard. If you look at the statistics, the truth of the matter is most people who try to get sober don't achieve long-term sobriety. They just don't, and that's just a fact. But 12-step is free. It's open to all comers. It's decentralized. There's no money laundering going on. There's no boss. Nobody's in control. And that sets it apart from the treatment, the sort of corporate conglomerate treatment, infrastructure, which is about making money. And when there's so much profit to be had, you're sowing the seeds for ultimately corruption to exist. I think, my experience was about indoctrination into the 12 steps. And that was a part and parcel of my treatment experience was, learning what that was all about, and then creating a long-term care plan for when I got out so that I could maintain what I had, the process that I had begun during that 100-day stay. It's not about, massage and Reiki and, going four-wheeling and, all like some of these are like luxury spa experiences.
Right.
And like, I'm not against self-care, but don't be confused. That's not treatment. Treatment is rolling up your sleeves. And look, there's in the movie, you see there's a therapist, and like, that's great. But also that should also be understood to sit outside of and be considered distinct from actually the process of like working the 12 steps and working with a sponsor and helping newcomers and the like.
One of the horrible outtakes of the Batham story was he would rape or otherwise sexually assault women, and then they'd end up in a survivors kind of support group within the sober living house, and he was running it.
It's like unbelievable.
Yeah,
man.
So that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
But so what you're saying is going to a safe space helped, kind of removing yourself from the real world as it existed because it was so twisted for you and you were kind of twisted up in it, helped to put you in a place where you could receive some of this information, and then linking it to a 12-step program was like the bridge you needed to be able to work it in your daily life.
I mean, there was something very valuable for me to be able to opt out of my life and go someplace and focus entirely on getting well, but it was not a luxury experience. Like in the movie, he just kind of waltzes in and they give him a bed. Like when I walked in, they strip search you, they go through your luggage to make sure, because, people are trying to sneak stuff in. They're not that kind. Like, they threw me in a room and they basically wouldn't talk to me for 2 days until I like dried out. And it was pretty intense and hardcore. There was not a lot of coddling. We weren't going out on, field trips or anything like that. Like, it was really structured, and it was more like a mental institution. And it was a great facility, but it was kind of like being in a hospital ward or a dorm. It wasn't like being in a mansion with an ocean view. I mean, I could tell you that.
Yeah. And then the idea that, like, that's what's so heartbreaking about the story is that they are advertising safe spaces to try to get well, and then it's anything but a safe. Actually, you're the prey. It's twisted. I didn't even know anything about this.
So I hope that
story.
I hope that this movie will prompt more conversations like this and greater oversight, because a lot of this stems from the fact that there is very little oversight when it comes to sober living houses and detox facilities, and there's just too much money to be made. So we need regulatory oversight over how these insurance funds are dispensed to make sure that people who are in need of treatment and detox can still access that. I mean, I think sober living facilities, when done right, are incredibly beneficial. Like the idea is you detox, then you have inpatient, and then you have outpatient. And for a lot of people, they need a transition to real life. And the sober living house provides that soft landing so they can live with other recovering addicts and alcoholics while they go out into the world and try to get jobs, but they're still accountable and there are still certain rules. So to the extent that we can craft and create some regulatory, oversight over how these things are conducted to make sure that people are safe and that they're fulfilling their intention is what I think we all want.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I read, that was the reason that there's so little regulation around sober living houses, at least at the time, was because they didn't want to be a lot of red tape, because the more red tape, the more likely that someone in the neighborhood would find out there was a sober living house now in their neighborhood.
Yeah, it's like a not in my backyard
thing. Would be a NIMBY thing. And so there are good intentions that created this situation, like Obamacare trying to get mental health and drug addiction recovery mandatory for these insurers. That's a great intention.
Right. And it can't be considered a pre-existing condition.
Right. And then sober living houses, the intention was to make it discreet so that they could exist.
Right. But the tragic thing is that you have addicts who cycle through this and become, not only do they not get well, they become calcified around recovery because their experience was so bad and they realize like what's really going on there and they become hardened to the process of recovery at all. And then lives are lost.
Yeah.
Lots of lives are lost.
Well, thanks for bringing it to my attention. I can't believe I missed this entire story over those several years.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. What do we got? We're going to do a little show and tell now.
Yeah, show and tell. Well, do you want to start with the newest podcaster on the block? He's kind of a he's a small timer in the game. Yeah, you might have heard of him though.
The Boss and Obama getting together on Spotify.
Yes.
So listen, Barack, I know you were president for 2 terms and you're dashing and handsome and the like, but I don't know what makes you think you can host a podcast. This is a skill, my friend. It takes years.
Listen, you might have a degree in hypnotherapy, but you're not a podcast host.
Right. So
I had to go to DeVry to get this job.
I haven't listened to this podcast yet, but this was big news. Spotify made a big splash with this Bruce Springsteen, Barack Obama podcast episode. Is it intended as just one episode, or is Obama going to now like interview people? Like what's going on?
I don't know if Renegades is this shingle where they're going to just pair 2 people together and it'll become something, or
like
if
an
it's
Iconoclast. Remember that show Iconoclast on IFC where they get like they had Eddie Vedder and Laird Hamilton spend the day together.
Right. Or is this Renegades? Does it belong? Is Barack Obama going to just interview other people? It's hard to know. I listened to the first episode on the way here, and I mean, Barack Obama is very good. I'm sorry to tell you, he's such a good interviewer. But I'm struck by 2 things. One is Barack Obama is a great podcast host, and he is the host. He's interviewing Bruce, and it unfolds over the course of like I don't know how many episodes, maybe a half a dozen. And the first one is about being outsiders, growing up as an outsider. And, it's not like Bruce Springsteen hasn't told his life story before.
Right.
He's told it over the course of many record albums. I went to the River Tour where he just talked about, he just performed that album and talked about his life. He did a Broadway show, and now he's in this. But every time he talks about his life story, it does feel fresh. I mean, he is very gifted in that category. And the 2, it is great to hear them together. And I found myself suspending all those kinds of thoughts about what this means for podcasting and just kind of enjoying these 2 people. But so it's good. It's good content. You know, Spotify is like, if you couple this with what Joe Rogan's deal was with the Bill Simmons Ringer deal, it's incredible what they're doing.
They've really stepped up.
Yeah.
I mean, they have made big plays to try to own this corner of the internet, and they're putting great stuff out there. So hands off to them. It's an interesting move on behalf of Spotify. They're recognizing that owning a significant part of podcasting market share is in their interest for a number of reasons, not the least of which is when you look at how these tech platforms grow and become de rigueur, it's about monopolizing your time, right? Like the idea, the sort of parameter is how long can we keep you on our platform?
Right.
And when Spotify has listeners listening to music, they have to pay royalties out to the record labels. But when they have a podcast on, if that podcast is if they're listening to Joe Rogan for 3 hours, they're on Spotify for 3 hours listening to ads, but they don't have to pay. I mean, they paid Joe up front, but they don't have to pay royalties out. So it's in their interest to move towards podcasting and away from music as a way of capturing people's attention. And they've got this crazy war chest that they can marshal to get people like Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama on their platform.
Are they profitable yet?
I don't know what the numbers are, but they're running it like a Hollywood studio. I mean, Dawn Ostroff is running, podcasting for Spotify, and she's been magnificent at recruiting top talent and developing, what they're, it's basically like Netflix for podcasting.
Right.
So
crazy.
Good on them.
And did you had some other insights into this? You're reading something right before we went on. Do you think it's, how does this help or hurt kind of podcasting going forward? What was your takeaway on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a New York Times article today by a guy called Ben Cesario. The title of the piece is called "Podcasting is Booming. Will Hollywood Help or Hurt Its Future?" I have, a variety of thoughts on this. I mean, first of all, there's a conversation to be had that I'm not that interested in, which is if a podcast is on Spotify, is it even a podcast? Because it's four-walled there. It's not an RSS feed. And podcasting technically is when you can disperse an audio file and make it publicly available across the internet. I don't think that that's an important distinction. I think we're moving towards this subscription future where everybody's going to be putting their stuff, like whether it's Substack and newsletters, like everybody is segmenting content behind a variety of subscription paywalls right now. So it seems like this is just the natural evolution of things. Podcasting, I wasn't the first to start a podcast, but I've been in it longer than most, now 8.5 years almost. And it's changed dramatically. It used to be a hobbyist sort of pursuit, and something that a lot of comedians were doing.
Yeah.
But now it's being monetized significantly across the board with the bigger shows. And with that influx of money, you're going to see the corporatization of it and the growth of things like Spotify. So it's not surprising. I still believe, I wouldn't say it's a meritocracy. I think if you're starting a podcast right now, it's very difficult to get audience share because there's so much content out there, not just in podcasting, but across the board. So if you're just looking at trying to grab attention share in the attention economy when there's Netflix and Hulu and HBO, all the streaming platforms, and then, everything that's going on with audio right now, including all the apps that are available, what are you creating that's going to be compelling enough to draw people away from whatever it is that they're paying attention to and pay attention to your thing? I think it's incredibly difficult right now. And we've benefited from being early on and getting a little bit of, a land grab that we've been able to hang on to.
Yeah.
God forbid we tried to start this thing now. I think it would have been incredibly difficult. But I do believe, that being said, that quality rises to the top over the long haul. Right. So
it can.
It can.
It doesn't always work that way.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're good and it's not about getting millions of people to listen to. It's like, who are your 100 true fans or the 1,000 people that are interested in what you're doing? And podcasting is still, there's no barrier to entry. Anybody can do it. And if you pick a particular niche that you find compelling, there are other people out in the world that probably will agree with that. And
one thing that helped you is you had three-pronged niche. You were kind of like, you have the sobriety, you have the plant-based, and you have the endurance power. And putting those three things together was kind of a calling card for you early on, right?
I guess, I never really thought of it that way. Yeah. That's probably true, but I just followed my curiosity, and now if you were just going to start a podcast and just say, I'm going to talk to interesting people, like, good luck. Even movie stars have tried to do that and failed, people who already have big followings. So it's not easy. And just because you have name recognition doesn't mean that you're actually good at this thing. It's a skill, even though Obama, is knocking it out of the park with his first go.
Great first guest.
I think, like, if I go back and listen to my early podcasts, I'm sure I'd cringe. I would never do that. But, it's like you grow and change with it. But I think with this influx of money, you're going to see higher production quality, higher production value, and you're getting these scripted series. We see a lot of the true crime stuff, and now these new narrative storytelling, which is old radio. It's old timey radio coming back, packaged with movie stars and big budgets. And the idea is that this becomes IP that you can develop into miniseries, TV shows, movies, and the like. Like We Crash, the Wondery series, is being developed as a movie right now. Like, there's a lot of that is going on right now. So there is a lot of attention being paid to this. But at the same time, like, the way that I look at it is, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. I'll try to get better at it. And I believe that long form, interesting conversations with compelling people is never going to go out of style.
I think it's interesting, the kind of family rivalry that's budding between Michelle and Barack. Michelle's book kills it. Then Barack comes out, his book kills it. She has a great Spotify podcast that's doing great. He comes out with Bruce Springsteen, 6-part series. They're fueling each other.
It's funny, isn't it?
It's great.
I wonder what those conversations are like at home. I'm sure they're very supportive of each other.
There's definitely some poking, though.
Like, oh yeah, how many books did you sell today?
We're going to have to get the real story from Sasha and Malia at some stage.
But I will say, like, as part of this New York Times article, this idea that, as podcasting becomes big business, there's unease that the diversity of voices in our earbuds, never a strong suit of the industry, could be put at risk too. That may be true, but, like, what are we supposed to do about it? Like, are we supposed to put protective measures?
To what?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
To make sure you have the right amount of percentage people that have the microphone.
Which brings up the broader discussion about, content moderation in podcasting, which I don't know how you could possibly do that.
I think you have to just like you said, I think, anybody can get into it. Anybody can buy a couple of Shure microphones and get into it. You
could do it on your iPhone and upload with Anchor. You don't even need Shure microphones. Shure microphones are nice, though.
Doesn't it sound
But they're not
good?
cheap.
No. But they're, what are they, $500?
Something like that.
Yeah. Just go on TikTok and start dancing. You'll build a huge following, and you can just create a podcast out of that.
There you go. All right, man. What do we got next?
Okay, I saw a movie this week called Diving Deep: The Life and Times of Mike Degree. Mike Degree, it was made by his wife, Mimi. Mike died tragically. I don't want to spoil it, but he was an incredible underwater cinematographer and nature host. And you may never have heard of him, but he was also a submarine pilot, a technical diver. You have seen his footage. If you've seen Blue Planet, you've seen Mike's work. If you saw the Titanic documentary that James Cameron produced about finding the real Titanic, he was the DP on that. If you've seen the footage of the orcas playing with the sea lions on the beach, hunting them, he was the first guy to shoot that. So he is a giant in that space. He's on the level of kind of in the Jacques Cousteau, Sylvia Earle category in terms of an incredible all-around scientific mind and cinematographer and kind of blurring those lines. I mean, he is one of the truly great people in that space. And I didn't even know his story until I watched this movie. And it became, I think Mimi started to look at footage from his years in the editing room 9 months after he passed away and started to put together this movie. This is a great snapshot of who Mike was, where he grew up, how he got into it, a shark attack that he survived, his becoming a submarine pilot, his going to the Gulf of Mexico after Deepwater Horizon, that disaster happened, and how he got so angry when the dispersants were dropped to sink all that oil, and what dispersants do post oil spill to the ecosystem and to in general, and how that kind of angered him and mobilized him. And she interviews a lot of luminaries from that space, including James Cameron several times. And I've never seen James Cameron, who you all know, Avatar, Titanic director. I've never seen him so disarmed in an interview. Usually he's pretty kind of uptight and reserved, and he is just like really wide open in this interview. And there are reasons for that, and you'll see why. But you know, you credit Mimi for that, and just to respect these watermen that people don't hear about, and how much he cared about sharks, and how much he cared about the marine ecosystem, and how curious he was, and how excellent he was at all these. You know, to become a great underwater cinematographer is one thing. To become a great technical diver is another thing. To become a submarine pilot is another thing. Yeah. To do all of that while raising a family and do it all in one lifetime is absolutely, it's unfathomable to me. It's incredible.
Right. Well, I'll have to check it out. I haven't watched it yet, but super interested in that.
Yeah. I'll drop the link.
Diving deep. We'll put a link in the show notes of that. The Life and Times of Mike Degree.
Like he's from Mobile, Alabama.
His wife Mimi is the one who directed the movie.
Yep, she made it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So technically this is show and tell.
Yes.
So I thought, I don't have any big specific show and tell thing, but I did want to say that I get like so many books in the mail.
Right.
And often I get multiple copies of the same book.
Really?
Because they don't know that they sent it to me, or maybe the author sends it to me and then the publisher sends it to me. And generally these are, you know, books for podcast guests or potential podcast guests. And I've had a habit of either donating them to libraries or to Goodwill. But I thought I would do a giveaway. So I just grabbed a couple that were in my office right now. I have multiple copies of Adam Grant's Think Again. I've got a second copy of Jed Jenkins' Like Streams of the Ocean. I got 2 copies of this amazing book that I'm just starting called Exercise by Daniel Lieberman, who's a Harvard professor. He was one of the pioneers of the barefoot running movement.
Oh, really?
He's part of Born to Run, and I'm trying to get him on the podcast. This guy's got amazing stories, and he's super cool.
There's a petroglyph on the cover.
There is, yeah. It's all about like human ancestry and movement. And
is that a petroglyph treadmill?
Yeah, it is. I think. It's
wow, we were so advanced.
It's a Peloton on the
is that
cover.
an ancient Greek Peloton?
The point is, Adam, stay on track here.
Oh, sorry.
I got a bunch of books that I want to give away. So, and plus, I brought out a sketch that Brian O'Hara did for me on YouTube. You can see this. So Brian, my artist friend Brian, who I've spoken about on the podcast before, he's the one who created our logo, and he's got a bunch of artwork here in the new studio. He has a very interesting lens on the world. He sees words backwards. He's not dyslexic, but he has a different relationship to
the written word,
his like visual cortex than most people. So his art is in this kind of reverse hieroglyph style.
Interesting.
That makes it almost look like Arabic or something like that. And he kind of encrypts his artwork with positive messaging. And this is just a piece that he like did really quick and ripped it out of his sketchbook and gave it to me. I've got a bunch of these, so I thought it would be cool to give this away on the podcast. I'm not even sure what this says. I think
how are you going to give it away?
I think this says peace and plants.
Oh, does
Can
it?
you read this?
Let's see. Well, there's definitely peace and plants.
You see peace.
Yeah.
I think it says peace and plants.
Yeah.
And as you can see, for people who are just listening, it's just torn out of a spiral notebook.
It's amazing.
And it's not framed or anything like that. But I believe in Brian's talent, and I think one day he's going to be a massive success as an artist. So this could be a valuable thing to hang on to. So how do I do this? I don't know. I mean, maybe just subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave a comment below the video with why you think that you should get this book or this piece of art, and we'll pick somebody.
Perfect.
How about that?
I love it.
Cool. So that's my big show and tell for today.
Good show and tell.
All right. You want to talk about Lawrence Ferlinghetti, right?
I do want to talk about Lawrence Ferlinghetti. This is kind of the teachable moment and maybe a hat tip to a legendary man in publishing and in poetry. He died, you may have heard or read, at 101 years old recently. I guess it was February 23rd, the obituary. So either that day or the night before. Lawrence Ferlinghetti started a bookstore in 1953 called City Lights in San Francisco. It's in North Beach, kind of in the transition zone between Chinatown and North Beach. Dwight Garner, the literary critic at the New York Times, called it almost certainly the best bookstore in the United States. For me, it is. It's kind of
a historic landmark.
A landmark,
it's
a holy temple.
Icon of a time.
Yes, a holy temple of madmen and people who are looking for truth in this world. And basically, he started the bookstore within a couple of years, and it was just all paperbacks at a time when paperbacks weren't really being sold too much. So he started this paperback bookstore, and because of that, it was like things were cheap, and he acquired a bunch of people were coming to San Francisco, and they showed up at his doorstep, and a lot of them were poets. And within a couple of years, he launched a press to start publishing these people. One of them was Allen Ginsberg, and his story turns, and the story of the Beat literary movement turns when he publishes Howl, which I'm holding it up here. It's a 50s.
Ferlinghetti publishes Howl.
Yeah, Ferlinghetti
Under
published
City
it.
Lights has like a banner.
That's right. And he published it in, I think it was 59, 57, 56. Publishes it in 1956. It's the first thing he published. It's Allen Ginsberg's Howl, because he performed it in City Lights. And a 56-page book that became a sensation. And partly because everyone heard about it, they came in to buy it. And the police, San Francisco police, had an undercover cop come in. And I guess he was under 18 or had they were following someone, and the bookseller sold it to someone under 18, and it's sexually explicit, and it talks about homosexuality and all sorts of things in this 56 pages, especially the poem Howl, which is, as you know, one of the great poems. Because what it did was it broke verse from something stodgy like poems of the old age, and became much more stream of consciousness style. And anyway, the bookseller was arrested. Ferlinghetti, the publisher of the book, was arrested, and the owner of the store was arrested, and it became a landmark First Amendment case where basically it was tried. Can you, is this obscene literature? Can you, is it, or is it not? And is it protected by the First Amendment? And it turned out it was. They had a good lawyer.
Was Kunstler the lawyer on that?
I forget. There's a James Franco movie that talks about this. I didn't watch it.
I saw that a long time ago. Something tells me William Kunstler was the lawyer. I couldn't.
Yeah, they got like a heavyweight lawyer that came in and argued it. Even though
Kunstler's the guy with the law. He did Chicago 7.
Okay.
And,
Yeah. So it's a municipal case, but it had national implications. And luckily there was a federal court case that they used as a precedent, and this kind of reinforced that precedent that if there is social value, it can't be considered obscene. And so that's what the argument was, and everyone was innocent of charges, and this poem became a sensation and basically fueled this Beat movement, which included Jack Kerouac, Gary Snyder, Jack Kerouac on the road, and all of those, Gary Snyder, Neal Cassady, and Ferlinghetti himself, who published Coney Island of the Mind, which is one of the most successful poetry books in history, 1 million copies in print. And so, the legend was built right around that era. And what I think is one of the things he used to say is, when life gets too awful, look for the lyric escape. That's something Ferlinghetti says. And that can be writing, it can be painting, it can be sex, making love, it could be running, swimming, diving. Reach for a peace of mind. That's the lyric escape. And to me, City Lights was a lyric escape every time I entered that building. And so, they gave us great literature, but they also kind of bridged. They were open to Zen Buddhism. They were open to kind of an expansion of the mind. It wasn't just about reading a great book. It was reading a great book that allowed you to look for that expansion of your own self. It kind of was a precursor to a lot of the yoga stuff that kind of came right in the 60s, and the yoga movement and the personal development movement. So it's one of those really pivotal literary movements in our culture. And Ferlinghetti was a foundation.
Right. And I don't know that we mentioned this, but we're bringing it up because he just passed away.
Yeah. No, I did mention it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
He passed away at 101 years old.
Right. I mean, City Lights, the vortex of the counterculture movement of the 60s, it birthed the beat poet generation, Neal Cassady, all of that. And, if you haven't visited City, I mean, it's still there. Like if you haven't,
it closed down during the pandemic.
Oh, it did.
It just closed down, and then it raised a bunch of money through one of those GoFundMe, and so now it has $400,000 to hopefully reopen, but they have not committed to reopening.
Yeah, they can't let that fail.
You can't let it fail now.
Just like you can't let the Strand fail in New York.
No. As a Stanford student, did you go into the city? Did you kind of, was that on your radar, City Lights?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I remember the first time that I went in there, knowing full well the legacy and the history that's baked into that. And I was, as a young person, fascinated with that period of time. I remember reading Tom Wolfe's The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, and it just blew my mind, and reading On the Road and all of that. So I love all that stuff. And it is interesting how, what is the long-term legacy of that and how it's getting played out right now? Like everything from Lululemon to this now swap in how we're thinking about free speech, right? Like free speech being the vanguard of the progressive liberals during this period of time when people are getting arrested for selling copies of Howl to underage people, to now that being a mirror image of what it once was.
Right. Well, so exactly to your point, it was the kind of the overlords of the old culture of the 1950s, the stodgy kind of religious institutional culture that was saying, no, you can't say this. This is the wrong thing to say, and basically arresting people for publishing a book because it had the wrong words in it. And now we're making punk rock nonconformist stars out of mediocre minds, when progressives are doing that by saying you can't say this. Now progressives
are the ones who are policing speech.
Exactly.
It's strange and disorienting to see that happening. And part of that is rooted in progressive progress, and part of it is perhaps a bridge too far in terms of...
I think it starts with, again, good intentions.
Yeah.
We're not condoning hate speech here, and people, if you allow free speech to the maximum level, hate speech has to be protected too. There's a reason the ACLU have filed cases to support KKK marches. The idea is that you keep it open so that the marginalized have a space to speak, but that is by nature going to allow everyone to have a space to speak. But we're not condoning hate speech at all, but we need to have the big picture in mind always when we're talking about freedom of speech. A good beat poet title for the current age, Jason was saying this before we went on, please stick to the approved words. That would be the great poet title of the current age.
Right, because that's like a very provocative punk rockish title to have in this moment right now.
Right. And that doesn't mean that we don't understand where it's coming from or don't have empathy to people who felt marginalized and want to make things better, but you can't control making things better by saying what you can say and when you can say it and how you can say it. Because if that was true, we wouldn't have old people getting pushed over on the streets. Everything would be cool, but it's not cool.
Yeah. All right, let's do some listener questions.
Okay, listener questions. Let's hear from Josh from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hey, Adam. Hey, Rich. This is Josh from Raleigh, North Carolina calling. My question is an aspirational riff off of the conversation that Rich recently had with Lexi Pappas about the importance of surrounding oneself with high vibration people. So my question for both of you is if you could have a road trip, a pilgrimage, some type of adventure with 3 people, living or dead, who would they be? For me, it would be Rich Roll, Ram Dass, and Father Richard Rohr. Sorry, Adam. Much love. Namaste.
Oh my God.
Namaste, Josh. I can't come. What can I be the driver?
That's very generous. I'm flattered.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't pick me.
You're bemused. You wouldn't pick yourself?
No.
You have to go. It's your road trip.
Who do you got?
Me?
Yeah.
I divided up into the living and the undead. In the living, I'm picking Barack Obama because he's my favorite podcaster.
You're fired.
Thich Nhat Hanh. And Elizabeth Gilbert because she's pretty chatty and she'd be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when you're going on a road trip,
Yes.
there's lots of things to consider.
Yes.
Like how often is this person going to need to pull over and go to the bathroom? What are their
good
dietary restrictions? Like, is this are you going to be able to do the long hang as you go all the way across?
So you have Thich Nhat Hanh, old timer, who's
Right.
seen it all, and Barack Obama. They could talk. I think you'd have a lot of like great insights in Elizabeth Gilbert, all very well-read people. I'd learn a lot.
I just like to sit in the back seat and listen to Barack and Liz Gilbert get chatty,
Yeah.
which would be good.
And Thich Nhat Hanh would just like, he'd
Chime in with he'd just drop a little pearl every once in a while.
you know, Thich Nhat Hanh was, as you may or may not know, a giant he was a Vietnamese, not refugees, Vietnamese monk who ended up having like early mindfulness meditation influence, and he was he and Martin Luther King Jr. were very tight. So my undead is Bruce Lee because he's a cool movie star, John Coltrane because he's him, and Anne Frank in the Liz Gilbert role.
Did you intentionally make these sort of appropriately diverse? Also, you have for each the living and the undead, you have an African American, an Asian, and a woman.
Well, I'm trying to be. I want to make it. I want. You know what? Yes, I thought about it, but
It's so woke.
I probably would have. It probably would be John Coltrane, Bob Marley, and somebody else if I had to pick. But in this sense, since we're live on the air here, not live, but on the air, I figured I have so many things I'm interested in. I'm not even into martial arts, but I saw the Bruce Lee documentary recently, and it was either him or Napoleon, and I went with him. Yeah, Napoleon would be cool.
He might be a pain in the ass though too.
He'd want to drive.
Yeah,
He'd want to drive.
Be in control.
Yeah.
The whole time.
But we'd have to like strap blocks on his feet so he could reach the pedals.
Yeah. This is tough. I get asked this question a lot. Like, who would you have dinner with? I always stumble. I can never come up with anything that interesting. I mean, I just riffed off this off the top of my head, but for the living, I had Michael Stipe, David Attenborough, and Richard Branson.
Okay.
Or possibly Haruki Murakami.
Okay.
That would be cool.
Okay.
But, I don't know.
Michael Stipe because he's lead singer of your favorite all-time band.
All time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a must.
Yeah.
But I could go with Barack, Liz Gilbert. These are all cool people. Like, it's also about the curation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the point.
Because you're not going to be talking the whole time or listening the whole time. Like, are these people going to get along with each other?
You need to have, first of all, you need to have men and women because you have to have a nice balance. You can't, yes. And will they get along was a big thing. That's why I think my living car is pretty rock solid. I don't think that goes anywhere. But the dead, you just don't know how John Coltrane and Anne Frank are going to get along. Right. I think they'll be fine.
But if you have Liz Gilbert or you have like Brene Brown, like they get to the heart of things quickly.
Yes, but maybe almost too quickly.
Maybe when you're dealing with 3,000 miles ahead of you.
Yes.
I don't feel like they would run out of things to talk about though.
No, definitely not. Who's your
the undead? I got Marcus Aurelius because what is it like to be the most powerful man in the world and be a philosopher king. And
be played by Russell Crowe.
No, Russell Crowe didn't play Marcus Aurelius.
He played
Marcus Aurelius was played by what's his name? I'm blanking.
Oh, that's right. He
just passed away.
Yeah. Richard Harris.
Richard Harris, exactly. JC, Jesus Christ. I mean, why not? Let's get to the bottom of this, right?
I had Jesus on my list. I crossed him out for Anne Frank.
It's a cop-out, though. It's like, Abraham Lincoln and Jesus Christ and,
I know, I didn't want
to. But,
Abe
like,
Lincoln.
are you going to not pick him if you can pick anybody and let's get to the root of things.
It's pretty famous,
right? And while we're at it, Bill W. Why not?
Bill Withers?
Bill W. from the Secret Society, the founder, the co-founder of the Rooms.
I don't know.
You don't?
No.
Wow. It really has. It has been kept anonymous at the level of press, radio, and film. He's one of the co-founders of AA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Bill Wilson.
Bill Wilson.
But I don't know. Like, that's not the most diverse list either.
No, I don't think there's a right
answer.
I
feel maybe one of the reasons why I struggle with this a little bit is that I get to do this every week on the podcast. The podcast is my version of going on a road trip with somebody I want to talk to.
Right. And if you listen to your podcast, you're getting that. And you're also getting the, it's almost like the Barack Obama, Bruce Springsteen is half of the car.
Come at me, Barack.
Exactly.
Come at me. There's an open seat. I'll kick Adam out of here right away. If Barack wants to come and step in to roll on, you're fired.
I'm out of here?
Yeah. He's shown his chops. He can handle himself behind a microphone.
That's true.
Who knew? There's a job opening.
What about the boss?
That might be tricky.
Oh. All right.
Could be good. I don't know.
It's okay, I understand.
I don't see Bruce coming over here every week.
If Barack wants to come here every other week, I will.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's going to get a pad down in Point Doom. He's going to ride his Ducati over here.
Podcasting is a meritocracy. I will have to give way. I will give way.
All right. Let's move on.
All right. This is another interesting question we don't get every day from Tara in Long Beach, California.
Hi, this is Tara. I'm from Long Beach, California. So my question is, I'm a family physician who works full-time. I have twin 3-year-olds, and I am trying to dabble in ultra running. My wife is supportive of my running, but in a way that can be frustrating and difficult for our relationship. So my question is, how do I best balance these 3 things that I have going on without disrupting the balance of my relationships as well, specifically with longer runs on the weekends and time away from family? What is a good way to address these issues and have everyone's needs met? Thanks, guys. Bye.
This is a great question. I think this is relatable for anybody who gets involved in endurance sports.
Yep.
The term Ironman widow exists for a reason.
Oh, really?
Because these pursuits can often end in cataclysmic relationship results if not handled appropriately.
I figured you were the perfect person to ask this question.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, this is the first thing I would say is you're set up for failure right out of the gate because this is a very difficult hat trick to accomplish. And I think to launch into this, the first thing to bear in mind is you can't excel at all of these things every single day. Like, there's this idea of how am I going to balance all of these things so that I'm giving them an appropriate amount of attention every single day. And I think that's the wrong way to think about it because you can't do that. You can't be at your best as a physician, as a partner, as a parent, and as an athlete all the time. Like, it's just not rigged that way. So let go of that fantasy out of the gate and try to configure a schedule and a structure that allows you to kind of toggle between these pursuits, understanding that on certain days, your priority is going to be in one of these buckets or 2 of these buckets, but not all of these buckets. So that over the course of a month or a week, they're all getting an adequate amount of attention, but not all on the same day or at the same time. So structure and scheduling, super important. I think that you should craft that schedule in cooperation, in partnership with your wife, so that your wife is part of organizing what these days are going to look like, that your wife is participating in the allocation of your time and energy, and to come to that conversation trying or endeavoring to the best of your ability to structure your training at periods of time that don't compromise the goals that your wife has or the parenting needs that you both mutually share. So that might mean that your runs have to be super early in the morning before anybody's awake or late at night when everybody's asleep. And I understand that you have a full-time job, You're not a professional ultra runner though, right? Nobody's paying you to do that. This is something you choose to do, but you've got to make the choice of how you apply that in a way that's not disruptive to your family. You already know that. And that means, finding those windows of opportunity that don't put, your wife's schedule at peril and create this tension in the relationship. The other thing is, you don't want to ever set yourself up to be overtrained or overly fatigued. You've got to be able to show up 100% for your kids and for your wife when you're not training and you're not working, so that that doesn't become an additional drag on top of the hours spent when you're not at home. And I think what's been helpful to me in doing this is twofold. First, anticipate your wife's needs and your kids' needs in advance so that you're planning for that. And you're not like showing up, oh, you didn't get the groceries because you had to go running or something like that. These are the things that like are small things in isolation, but they add up and they can really, derail a relationship.
Right.
So being ahead of the curve in terms of understanding and anticipating what your wife is going to need and fulfilling those needs before perhaps she's even aware that she needs them filled. So that way you're demonstrating through your behavior, repetitive behavior, that you're conscious of the fact that your ultra running is perhaps taking you away from the relationship more than she would like, but you're showing up in ways that are telling her like you're here, right? Even when you're not there, you're actually there. And then when you are there, to be 100%. Like when I was training for Ultraman at my peak, I've told this story before, but I'd come back from like a 30-mile run or a 6-hour bike ride, and I'd walk in the house like just wasted, and Julie would like hand me a baby and be like, your turn, bye. I'm going to go do my thing.
Right.
And I couldn't be like, I need a nap or I got to like shower. It's like, no, you got to be on point, right? It's your turn. And by respecting that and making sure that I was present when those, moments arose, that's how we were able to kind of keep everything moving and on track. If I was just like, no, I can't, or sorry, I got to train right now, like that's not going to work. So
were there times where she pushed back against like,
well, she was very supportive. I mean, I was lucky because I had a very supportive partner.
She's all about you finding like
right. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't hard, because we're talking about a ton of time. And also, we were going through some financial stuff. It was like a very difficult period. And I credit Julie tremendously for really, being an incredible support in a way that I think most partners wouldn't and can't be expected to, honestly. Right. So it's understandable. Like, what, you're going to go run for 5? Like we have twin baby. Like, what are you doing? Like you got to be here. So that's why I think anticipating your partner's needs and the needs of your children is so important. I also think that you have to choose your moments. Like I said at the outset, it's impossible to excel at all of these things every single day. And if you attempt this, you're going to fail in all the categories. You're not going to be able to train like a pro, so don't try to. And there's going to be days where maybe you have some big run on your calendar and this is really important to you, but something went haywire at home and the kids need you, and you got to be like, what are my priorities? Like, I got to show up for my kids. I got to show up for my wife. Like, what is most important in the grand scheme of things? Is it really worth derailing your relationship for ultra running? Like, ultra running is something you can do your whole life if you do it responsibly. And so that doesn't mean that your needs shouldn't be met either. It's important, if this is bringing you happiness and fulfillment, that you should have the freedom and the license to like do the things that you enjoy doing, which is why communication is so important, right? And if this is important to you, it's incumbent upon you to communicate the importance of it to your wife so that she really understands. Like, does she really understand? Why is this important to you? Why are you doing this? And the more that you can have that channel of communication open with your wife, I think you'll be in a better place to engender the empathy and support that you're looking for. But that's a two-way street. You got to give it in return as well. You can't expect her to support you unless you're supporting her in kind. So what is your wife's ultra running? Like, what is it that she would like to be doing? And how can you go out of your way to make sure that you're supportive to her in that regard, in the way that you would like to be supported?
It's great advice. I can't offer anything to this discussion other than because I'm not doing 30-mile
But you
runs.
have a baby and you're trying to do this Goggins thing, and you've got
That's
April
true.
at home. So how's that going?
I had to talk her into the Goggins thing. She was not really feeling the Goggins thing. Well, because for her, she's like with the baby almost all the time. And I have my work, which at least allows me, even if I'm in the same apartment, I'm in a psychic space that is my own. And she's not really permitted a psychic space that is her own too often. And so when I run training, often I'll take the baby out with me in a stroller run.
Right. That was the other thing I had on my list of things to respond to. Like get the twin, baby carriage thing. What is those called? I haven't had babies in a while.
Strollers?
What do you call them? Yeah, stroller.
Yeah. It's been a while, but they're still called strollers.
And she lives in Long Beach. There's like those paths along the ocean, where you can like push a stroller and
pretty soon they can ride bikes alongside you or whatever. But so I did have to talk her into that, and it just took that. I explained to her why it was important to me as best I could, even though I couldn't really explain to you why it was important to me. But she understood that. She never didn't want me to do it. It doesn't really show up as much in the running. Because for me, most of my runs are a little over an hour, sometimes less, sometimes a little over an hour. And if I want to do a long one, for me, it's like a 10-mile run usually. So that's like it's not like a 30-mile run. But swimming, at least doing the dives in Malibu, that has become a lot less frequent than it used to be for me. I try to get us out there once a week, but that includes taking everybody out, getting a beach tent set up, doing the whole thing. Otherwise, I can't.
As somebody who participated in that with you, I can affirm that is a languishing affair that goes on for hours unnecessarily. I'm like, are we going to swim and get this done? What are we doing?
We're looking for our octopus teacher.
I'm like, I'm out for a workout and you're looking for octopus.
Yes, that's right. We're getting in touch with our lyric escape.
Yeah. I'm like, no wonder. She's like, what are you doing? Get back here.
But she comes out with us. So she's only been able to, she went one time. She doesn't like 55-degree water. So for her, it's like, if the viz is good and it's warmish, she's down. And so we have made it possible for her to go with the group, and then I did my own thing after. We've done that once, but it does take I can't expect her to go sit on the beach when the wind is howling and it's getting sandblasted with the baby while I go on a little swim. So that is not happening as often as it used to. But she loves the beach also, so she likes being out there. So it's really about the communication aspect is important, and you do have to kind of supplement, especially knowing that I have 4x4 coming up. Basically, after 4x4, she prefers kind of mat workouts with this trainer from our gym that we don't longer go to because of the pandemic. And so we've been having him help us sometimes. And after the 4x4 48, we're going to prioritize more of those workouts that she can do, and that I'll do, And so we're just doing that. So that's kind of the thing she wants to do how am I supporting her in kind? That's the next step. So my running, I'll probably do a little less mileage every month and build in this other strength aspect. And that's just how it's going to have to be because you can't do it all.
Right.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah. Sorry, I made that about me.
No, it's
Tara.
good. You're in it right now. You got a baby.
I'm in it.
You're trying
I feel
to do
you.
something hard.
I feel you, Tara. All right, Emily from Minneapolis.
Hi, Rich and Adam. This is Emily calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was just calling today because I've been listening for years and am almost 2 years sober and about 98% vegan. So you could say I am drinking the Kool-Aid. But the reason for my call is, where are you both consuming information at this point? I'm curious what kind of podcasts you might be listening to, and also media and books and things like this where you're getting that inspiration from. Thanks so much.
Adam?
Yes?
You want to take a crack? She wanted to hear from both of us.
Oh, you want me to go first again?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Probably because my answer is going to be so disappointing. So go ahead.
No, come on. I'm reading James McBride's Good Lord Bird, which is about, basically it's historical fiction. It's all about the John Brown abolitionist who was this kind of had an army of abolitionists, and they went and they wreaked havoc on all sorts of slave owners in Missouri. So he was in Kansas, and they would run across the border and just kill slavers and deliver God's justice. And it's really hilarious. It's actually kind of an offbeat, hilarious take on this real thing that happened. James McBride, author of Color of Water, which I think it won National Book Award as well, or Pulitzer or something. And then I didn't read that, but that was an incredible memoir about his mother. Kill 'Em and Leave was the first McBride book that I read, and that's about James Brown. It's remarkable. I found it in some bookstore. Not many people have read it. It's like a 200-page book, and it's a sensational. And this book is magnificent. So I'm reading that, and I'm listening to Save the Cat Writes a Novel. That's part of it's my audiobook right now, part of my deep dive
Save
into
the Cat
craft.
is the screenwriting thing, right?
Right. And so there's novelist kind of took it and spun it. It's under that banner, but it's for novelists.
Right.
And she takes the same lessons and spins it and kind of uses fiction. And it's helped me just kind of like think, because I'm between drafts on a novel that I've been writing, and I'm just kind of listening to it and see if I can, after 2 drafts, I'm looking at like 10 draft kind of plan, and so I'm listening to it now. And then the podcast I listen to, aside from the Rich Roll podcast, which I do listen to,
Okay.
I listen to
Barack might have to wait.
Well, yeah, it's true. I am listening
Trying to hold on to that seat.
I love listening to the Rich Roll podcast. I also listen to every morning, Pardon the Interruption, this shouty sports podcast, and occasionally The Daily, and Revisionist History is a regular for me as well.
Good Lord Bird is a show starring Ethan Hawke.
I knew that. It became a show. I've been wanting to read the book for ages. Then it became a show, and I thought, no, I'm reading the book first.
Yeah. I love Ethan Hawke.
He's fabulous.
We talked about his TED Talk, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We did. I still want to get him on the podcast. I just listened to speaking of podcasts, I listened to an interview that Ethan did with, I think it was either on The Watch or The Big Picture, like those Ringer TV movie podcasts.
Yeah.
It was great. Like I love listening to that guy talk, and he was talking about Good Lord Bird and how much he loved the book, and how it was this passion of his to play this character, even though he thought he was too young to do it. Like he thought
a little bit young.
This should be like Jeff Bridges or somebody like that who was older. But apparently, I haven't watched the show yet, but it's been very well received.
Yeah, I mean, the story is told through the eyes of an 8-year-old or 12-year-old boy, something like a young boy slave who John Brown liberates kind of against his will, and mistakes him for a girl. And so then he goes around dressed as a girl, which saves his life. But he's like liberated against his will, goes with John Brown, and John Brown is prone to all sorts of like crazy sermons, like you can't eat unless he's done 2-hour prayer or something.
Right. Well, he's all crazy fire and brimstone.
Yeah,
he's over the top like all the time.
Yeah.
Right. I said at the outset that my answer might be a little disappointing. I mean, here's the thing. So much of my information diet is dictated by the podcast. Like who's the guest who's coming up?
Yeah.
Typically there's a book or a bunch of podcast interviews with that person, a deep dive into their life that involves, 30 tabs open on my browser.
Yeah.
So I immerse myself in the world of the upcoming guest and try to inhabit that in the most method way that I possibly can. And that consumes most of my time. In terms of news, my kind of go-to for news is generally Twitter. Like I follow tons of journalists, and I follow journalists of different mindsets and worldviews. So I keep things mixed up in my feed in that way. And so rather than, I'll open up the New York Times or the LA Times, but I tend to consume my news through Twitter. I don't know how many people still do that.
No,
but,
I do a lot of that too. I get to a lot of links, but it ends up being...
And then I can read different takes on the same story or different perspectives on what's going on.
Yeah.
In general, curiosity leads the way for me, and that's really what the podcast is about. In terms of podcasts that I consume and listen to, people are always surprised to hear this, but I don't listen to a lot of podcasts that are in the vein of what I do. Like there's a handful of other people that are would be considered, kind of similar to this show.
Yeah.
And unless I have a guest that I'm researching who's on one of those shows, I typically don't do that because it sort of feels like this is what I do and that feels like homework as opposed to enjoyment for me.
Yeah.
So I end up listening to podcasts that pique my interest in other areas. Like I love everything Malcolm does. So I listen to Revisionist History and his other various shows, Broken Record. I love conversations about movies and television. So I listen to The Big Picture and The Watch. I do subscribe to The Daily. I don't listen to all of them. I kind of pick and choose with that.
Yeah.
I still, old school, I still love Marc Maron, the WTF podcast. I've been enjoying Mike Birbiglia's podcast, Working It Out, which is fun. Have you ever listened to his?
No.
It's pretty cool. Like he'll bring on, most of his guests are comics, but he brings them on and he has kind of a series of questions that he asks all of them. But the premise is really, I'm working on this material and let me like try it out on you and give me feedback. And then they're like, I'm working on this. And then they're like, so it's like a note session.
That's great.
Which gives you a glimpse into the creative process and how comics. And also this is a very important thing for anybody who's trying to do anything creative, like how you give and receive feedback and notes is really important. Like, can you, like who you choose to bring into that circle is important. How you ask the question and how you receive the response and how the person provides the response. Like there are people who are really good at giving feedback and doing it in a conscious way that's constructive versus destructive or just negative. And I think there's an art to that. And when you can be in a receiving mode and set your ego aside and actually hear what the person is saying and not be reactive and kind of embrace it, even if they're like, I don't like this, I think you completely lost the thread with this, and you're like, oh, can you be curious and interested in why that person feels that way? I think is fun and helpful. And I think Mike is really good at that himself. And he's so fun and engaging to listen to. So I like that. I listen to Pivot with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher for business. I love Brian Koppelman's The Moment, which is all about conversations with people like, what is your inflection moment in your career? It's kind of the focus of that. Just for fun, I love the rewatchables when Bill Simmons talks about old movies that you love to go back to. I love Rob Bell's podcast. I like Pete Holmes. You Made It Weird. Like I'm always mixing up my podcasting kind of lineup. But those are just some that I've been listening to lately.
Love it.
And I watch a lot of docs. I watched you
see everything.
No, I don't see everything, but I try to see as much as possible.
Yeah.
I watched the first half of the Billie Eilish documentary last night.
Okay.
Which is fantastic.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that
really
Netflix?
Good. On Apple Plus. Yeah.
What else is on your radar for movies right now?
I don't know. It's weird. Like the Golden Globes were last night and I didn't watch it, but I was kind of scrolling through Twitter and looking at all the people that won. And I was amazed at how few of the movies or shows that I've actually seen.
Yeah. It's one of those, it's one of those years you're not going to the movies,
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Lots of good movies to be streamed at home in the coming weeks, though.
All right. Stay tuned. Roll on.
That's it.
Listeners.
Yeah. I think we did it. Are we done?
We rocked it.
I think we're done. We're going to land this plane. How? Awesome, man. Thank you. How do you feel?
I feel good. I like this one. I think I'll listen to it on Thursday.
Are you gonna? Do you go back and listen to Roll On?
No, I don't. No, hell you say.
No.
I maybe once or twice. I'm trying to get better. You've been doing this 8.5 years.
Yeah, but I can't go back and listen to old shows. I never do that.
No,
I can't. Just because I can't listen to my own voice.
Can't bear to hear yourself. I'm with you.
But what you can do is you can follow Adam on the socials at Adam Skolnick. I'm at Rich Roll on all the places. I might do a Clubhouse soon.
Are you going to do a Clubhouse?
Well, I listened to my friend Neil Strauss did a conversation with Jared Leto on Clubhouse the other night, and I thought it was great. It was super fun, and people got to ask Jared questions, and I was like, this is cool.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do something there. I don't know. All right. Anyway.
Let me know.
Clubhouse.
Do you need a hype man for that or no?
I don't know. Well, I don't know what I would do there. I'm just, I just thought I had a good experience listening and,
How many people were in the Clubhouse room?
I mean, it maxed out. I think they max out at 5,000 and then there's like spillover rooms. So it was, look, he's like a huge movie star, right? Yes. So it was like everybody wanted to hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
But it was fun. All right. If you want to have your question considered for a future roll-on episode, again, leave us a message on our voicemail, 424-235-4626. Pick up a copy of Voicing Change at richroll.com/VC. Check out the show notes to see links to everything we talked about today on the episode page at richroll.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the places. We got a clips channel on YouTube. If you dig the short stuff, including the answers to all the questions we asked, we're uploading those there too. So you can find that at Rich Roll Podcast Clips. You just search it on YouTube and it's linked up in the show notes and all that stuff. That's it.
Done.
I want to thank everybody who helped put on today's show. Jason Camiolo for audio engineering, production, show notes, interstitial music, and matters sundry and unlisted. Jack of all trades behind the scenes. Blake Curtis for his video wizardry, filming and editing all of these. It's no small task. Jessica Miranda for whipping up the graphics. We got Allie Rogers on deck today for portraits. What's up, Allie? Georgia Whaley for copywriting. DK, our man, for advertiser relationships, and theme music, as always, by Tyler Trapper and Harry. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for the love. I don't take your attention for granted. And see you back here in a couple days with another episode, and back with Adam in 2 weeks. Yeah?
I'll be here.
To tell us about the 4x4x48.
If you might have to wheel me in, but I'll be here.
You might. And just remember, when you're out there and you're hurting, that the Iron Cowboy is doing an Ironman a day. Okay?
Damn you, Iron Cowboy.
All right. Peace.